back to our Spring Trends video series.
In this video, we're going to be looking at all of the detail. And welcome back to our channel. I'm Rachel.
I'm Nikki and we're the Stitch Sisters.
We still have to come videos that are going to talk you through the tops, trousers, skirts, jackets and coats, all that stuff with pattern recommendations.
Yes.
But there are some specific details that we were seeing on the catwalk which could apply to any pattern at all. So the next trend is fringing. Now fringing isn't a new trend. It was definitely on the catwalks in the autumn and winter and possibly even started the previous spring.
Yeah.
But it's certainly not going anywhere and we are seeing it done in slightly different ways. So we've seen short dresses with fringe that then goes down to the floor. Mm-hmm. We've seen fringing added all different layers, almost flapper style but spaced out a little bit more.
Okay.
So there's lots and lots of different takes on it. Obviously this is a harder trend to wear, I think, off the catwalk. It can look a bit weird and being practical, like imagine getting in and out of the car or in a
maxi fringe skirt,
just catching your fringe on things all the time in the kitchen, caught on the kitchen doorknobs and things.
You won't want to have a cat and wear a long fringe dress.
Exactly, they'd think you were a toy. But there are ways that you can wear it, and we found 3 patterns which have more reasonable, sensible uses for fringing, which do make them very wearable.
Okay.
So this first pattern is from DP Studio, who we mentioned once in one of our What We Love This Week videos, and they're a French pattern company and they do very fashion forward patterns. And this skirt from them, it's just called 4004. They just go with pattern numbers. It's a really, really interesting pattern because it's actually bias cut pieces, almost like a spiral. If you imagine an orange peel and you sew them all together to create this finished skirt. It's got an elasticated waist but not all the way round, so there's just a portion of it, so some of it's flat front, some of it's elasticated but not front and back like you would normally get.
Okay.
It does have pockets, but it's just really interesting construction.
Yeah.
And the version that we love is where they've put this fringing in between the little spiral, so it goes all the way around the skirt. I just want to put it on and have a
wiggle.
I think that was really, really fun. So I think that would be, and I've definitely seen skirts like that on the catwalk.
Yes.
So I think that's one where you can have a go at that trend, but still keep it relatively wearable.
We've got another one from Republic de Chiffon now, and it's the Johanna shirt. And this is very similar to the Western style shirt that we mentioned previously, but it's got fringing detail across the front and across the back. So the fringing is basically just sandwiched between the shirt front and the yoke on the shoulder, and then the same on the back and the yoke. So it's a really interesting way to do it. And of course you can pick whatever fringing you want. There's so many out there. You can have some real fun with it.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really fun one. But because it's a relatively simple shirt, unlike the other shirt from them, which was the Western shirt, has a lot more detail. This one's just very, very simple shirt construction. You just happen to add some fringing in between. But that's a very wearable way to wear fringing, and I really, really like that one. In fact, I'll insert a picture here of a shirt that I tried on in and other stories. I totally fell in love with it, and the only reason why I didn't buy it is because I thought I could make that. And now I found a pattern and then I think I might need to. So the final one that we wanted to show you is a McCall's pattern 8012. Now we have shown you this before. I think we did it in our autumn winter trends, but it's still very relevant. So leather is still a huge trend for this season, and this black leather version with the fringing in between would be absolutely perfect. If you wanted to go for a more 70s vibe, you can make exactly the same thing in a brown suede or a tan suede, and you'd get a whole different look. But then the thing we like about it is on the other line drawings, the versions that they've got, you can have with or without fringe, but you could also make it in a standard fabric like a cotton or heavy cotton or something like that, a drill, and that would give you a much more kind of relaxed look, again with or without fringing, but obviously we think with fringing should
always
happen.
with.
Yes. But that's another pattern that we think is very wearable.
Next up is the continuation of the pleat. So we've seen lots and lots of chemically pleated fabrics in the shops, and they are not going anywhere. In fact, they are going from just being skirts to being made up into dresses and all kinds of things. But there are pleats also in garments which are not chemically pleated. So we're seeing pleats being added into different areas of garments, such as into sleeves, into just being used in different ways to kind of bring garments in and use that oversizedness but give you more shape as well. So it's a really interesting trend, and again, as sewers, this is one that we can definitely do because we can all make pleats.
We can.
And there are lots of patterns out there with lots of pleat details, so you can definitely raid your pattern stash and see what you've got.
You can also just switch up any other kind of fullness in a garment for pleats. So if it's got gathers, switch it to pleats if that's the look you prefer.
Yeah.
If it's got darts, switch them to pleats if that's what you prefer. So it's entirely up to you how you use them.
Yeah. The first pattern we wanted to share with you was the Vogue 9360, and this is another shirt, but it's taken it to the next level. So it's really oversized, it's really long at the back, so it's almost like a shirt dress, but they've styled it with leggings and as a really casual way. But it's got really interesting pleat detail as well as being longer at the back and shorter at the front. So it's a really interesting one.
Yeah, it is, and I think that there's a few different variations on that pattern, all with pleats of some description, but just in different places. So it's a really fun one if you want gentle nods to pleats, but you don't want a whole pleated outfit. The next one that I wanted to show you is pretty much a whole pleated outfit, and it is this pleated shoulder dress from Trend Patterns. So this is one where you really do need to look closely at the line drawing to see exactly how much detail is in this dress. But basically, the sleeve head is formed by a whole almost like sun ray of pleats, and it's really, really interesting. It goes into this full sleeve. There's also pleats at the waist. It's got an asymmetrical hem. The bodice is constructed from princess seams. So it's one of those where the pattern pieces are going to be very skinny long ones or very huge ones for the sleeve and stuff, but the construction's definitely going to be interesting, and I just love the overall look of it.
The last one is a skirt, and this is by Rosie and me, and it's the Frida skirt. And the reason we like this one is it's got these big deep pleats that have been stitched almost halfway down the skirt, so it gives it a real vintage vibe.
It does. We saw very similar skirts from Celine in their autumn winter collection, and we've seen a few of them on the catwalk since as well. But I just think you can't go wrong with pleats at the moment.
No.
So it doesn't matter whether it's exactly like the ones that you've seen on the catwalk or in magazines or in the shops. If you like the fit of it and you like the cut of the garment and it suits you, then go for it. This is a really great wearable one. And actually, if you made it in a really good quality fabric, I think it's one of those that would last you forever. Like you'll be wearing it in 10 years' time. So next up, the next trend that we have is ruching. Now ruching is a bit similar to drawstrings in that it's often created by a channel, usually a double channel, where you would feed cord or potentially strings that you've made of the same fabric through, and you use them to create really interesting shapes on the garment. So they can hitch up at the side like the drawstring dress did in the previous one, but we tried to pick examples where the ruching actually creates a shape that you wouldn't be able to create without it. This dress from Trend Patterns, which is also called a drawstring dress as opposed to the side drawstring dress, but this time the drawstrings create really interesting shapes across the body and then back down over the waist, almost like a zigzag down the front, and it creates such beautiful details that you just wouldn't be able to create any other way, and that's very much like the things that we saw on the catwalk. That's the closest pattern that we found to the sorts of things that we've seen from the designers, but if you're looking for something that's really fashion forward, then I think that's a really, really cool dress to try. I think it's really interesting.
Excellent. So next up is a really simple top by Simplicity, which is the S8950, and it has various different parts where you can use ruching. It's got some on the sleeves, it's got some on the waistband, and you can just have a little bit of fun with it. So it's a jersey top, so it's going to be nice and simple to sew, but it will give you a nod to that trend.
Yeah, nice gentle introduction. And if you want even gentler still, then the Marmalade jacket by Waffle Patterns has some gentle ruching on the bust area. So it creates a really cool shape that gives it a really nice close fit overall for a jacket. It's kind of a biker jacket, moto jacket kind of vibe, but we just think having these soft gathers down the front either side of the placket is a really interesting detail, and would look really, really cool in a suede or a leather or in any fabric at all, really.
Yeah.
So there's a few options for ruching.
So next on details, we are looking at sheers. Now, we know this is not going to be for everyone, and we know that you're certainly not going to be picking something straight off the catwalk and wearing it doing your shopping. Because they were quite revealing, there was quite a lot of nakedness underneath quite a lot of sheer fabrics, and it's maybe not for everyone, but we do like the idea of using it as a layer. So lots of patterns that you can get which have sheer as a outside layer, but they also give you the pattern for the underneath part as well. The first one that comes to mind is a paper cut patterns dress called the Kobe dress, and this is a really nice dress underneath. It's a very simple spaghetti strap kind of dress with a dress over the top which is sheer, which has a sleeve. So this is a really nice nod to that trend.
It is. That pattern is also available as a top, so you don't actually have to make it as a whole dress. You've got both options.
Lovely.
The other option that we really like is this Audrey dress by Cami Made. Now this is basically an oversized kind of jumper dress. So it's been done in black here, which looks really, really trendy and classy, but you could do it in any colour at all. But when you get halfway down the sleeve, it changes to a sheer sleeve before it goes back into a solid cuff. So it's a nod to the sheer trend, but without taking it too seriously, because you're just exposing a little bit of your arm, which isn't too embarrassing really. But it's a really nice fit because it's not figure hugging in any way. It's actually quite a loose fit on the dress itself, and it looks quite structural almost. So I think you could have a play with different fabrics to create different looks with that one.
So the last one we're going to talk about is the McCall 7898, and this is a dress with sheer overlays over the top. So you've got sheer sleeves, you've got little peekaboo shoulders, and you've got sheer ruffles down the front as well.
So the last one that we've got to show you with regards to details can be seen pretty much anywhere that you look. High street magazines, catwalk, anywhere you look around the room. Statement sleeves are here to stay, and that makes us really, really happy because we love a statement sleeve, don't we, Nikki?
We do, yeah.
Look at the size of those bad boys. But the great thing about them is that they're getting more and more interesting. So it's not just the puff sleeve, it's not just the ruffles. We're now getting some really, really interesting construction. And I just think that it's because it's a trend that seems to be running and running, we get to have lots and lots of fun. And if you've not had a chance to pick up on that trend yet, you've still got loads and loads of time.
Absolutely.
So we are going to be mentioning a lot more statement sleeves and lots of other patterns when we get into tops and dresses and that sort of thing. But there are certain details or certain patterns that have been released recently that we happen to love that don't necessarily fit into the other categories, so we decided that we would showcase them here. So first up is a top from Our Lady of Leisure, and it's called the Screwdriver top. And if you look at the shape of the sleeve, then it'll be obvious where it got its name from. It's got this really, really interesting ruching or cinching at various points on this sleeve, which give it kind of almost a bubble effect. So you've got 2 or 3 bubbles down the sleeve. We just think it's really, really interesting. It's a wrap top. It's got a nice big bow on the side, and you can have some real fun with it. So we think that's definitely one that's worth checking out.
So we've got a dress for you next, which has got big sleeves. It's got statement sleeves and then some. It's McCall's M7995, and this comes with a flounce at the bottom. So it comes just about knee length, and it's got 2 flounces at the bottom. It's got halter neck in one option, but then the other ones have sleeves with more flounces coming on. So you've got a single flounce on one, and it looks like you've got some kind of wrapped around flounce on the other one. So again, another really interesting pattern.
And this next one is a new one from Cynthia Rowley, whose catwalk collection was awesome, by the way. She killed the macaroon rainbows. Check the colour videos if you don't know what we're talking about.
Don't kill the macaroon rainbows!
No, she didn't actually kill them. She just did really well with the pastel colours.
Okay.
And this new dress 9012 is either a dress or a top. It's got this amazing sleeve that has got these layers of ruffles, but the thing that we like about it is that the ruffles have almost been stitched onto the top, so you can actually see where they join. So it's almost like you're getting a little ruffle above the seam line and then a big ruffle below the seam line.
Nice.
And that just creates this really interesting effect. It's also gathered in at the neck, so it gives it that kind of ruching look as well, a bit like the Wilder gown from Friday Pattern Company.
Yeah.
So it's another really interesting interesting one. I think the length of the dress is really cool because it's kind of got that almost baby doll look, having all that volume but then having it short. It's got that very kind of iconic vintage kind of feel as well. So that's it for all the details. We hope you found that interesting. We know that's been a long one, and the reason why we go into that much detail on the details is because they're not going to be for everyone, and that way you can just pick and choose the elements that you like. So whilst you wait for the next installment of videos, which will be coming very soon, then why don't you go and have a look through your pattern stash now and see if you can find any of the details that we've been talking about. Maybe that will be the jumping off point for your new spring wardrobe.
So our next series of videos, which are coming up shortly, are going to be all about the patterns, and it's going to be shirts and tops and jackets and trousers and skirts and dresses and all the things.
So we'll see you then. Take care. Bye.